welcome back, everyone. Thank you for sticking with those commercial breaks. And we are joined by none other than CK Snarks, as you may know him on Twitter. We know him. Christian, how goes it, CK?
What's up?
Also,
How's my audio?
Better than last time we saw you. We should probably actually give him a proper introduction, I guess, because technically speaking, this is our boss. This is our fearless leader. He is the man in charge of all things Bitcoin Magazine. Did that cover the gist of everything you do and then some?
Yeah, just making things happy, trying to stay bullish.
Well, as you try to stay bullish, you have pretty much shamed all of us. And we're just going to start right there. Because you've been on a little bit of a rant for the last few weeks on Twitter, trying to call out just Bitcoiners in general, saying they're not bullish enough. What do you mean by that?
I guess, how do you feel about 100K? Is that a lot of money for Bitcoin? How do you feel about $1 million for Bitcoin?
Those are rookie numbers.
I mean, I agree.
Better, but not
I
good
feel
enough.
what Bitcoiners talk about, they're like, what's my bullish scenario? And they're like, $3 million Bitcoin. I'm like, guys, come on. You guys are really fucking bearish. I feel like this idea of infinity divided by 21 million, Bitcoiners kind of beat their chest about it, but they haven't thought about it enough. What does that actually mean? And then if you've then thought about what that actually means, how you need to behave in order to see that future. Because I think obviously it's one thing is being able to see the correct future, and then it's how to position yourself for that. That's the other part. So I mean that's how I'd high level frame it, why it's important to be bullish enough, be the appropriate amount of bullishness, because otherwise you might fuck up.
So I want to get your sense on this, because I think you're right in saying this idea that 100K, a million, 3 million, that's not bullish enough. But is just the sheer fact that there is still this conversation around Bitcoin will be worth X number of dollars fiat, of this fiat relationship, is that not the most bearish sentiment out there versus something like saying, I want one Bitcoin to be able to afford me a house, 2 cars, this, just a laundry list of things, and then changing the equation to say, I don't necessarily need it to be worth this much in fiat, but I need it to have this much buying power for these necessities. Would that be a more bullish conversation in your opinion?
I mean, yeah, I think buying power is the more accurate way to think about Bitcoin long term. But I mean, I'm not thinking about buying power of Bitcoins. I'm thinking about buying power of sats. So again, if we reprice the world in sats, and then repricing the world in sats and then staying at this current baseline is, in my opinion, already really fucking bearish. Isn't the whole point of Bitcoin is that it's a fundamental, massive upgrade on how we communicate and measure and store and transact and share value amongst each other? Theoretically, fiat has been holding us back. And Bitcoin can actually enable even more innovation, even more wealth, even more prosperity. So just calculating where we're at right now, and then trying to come up with some, what kind of buying power will a repriced world in sats give you? One, I think that's going to blow people's socks off, but 2, that's still bearish, because that's not taking into account the upgrade to society that is Bitcoin, the upgrade to the world that is Bitcoin.
So what does hyperbitcoinization mean to you?
I mean, I think it's simple. It's repricing the world in sats. So everything Bitcoin is a value communication protocol. So we need to use it to value and communicate that value. So when every aspect of the world is settling value, either denominated in Bitcoin or settled directly on the Bitcoin blockchain, or some derivative of the Bitcoin blockchain, Like that's hyper Bitcoinization to me. And then again, like there's a conversation about like, you know, what's the price of sats today, what's the buying power of sats in the future, and then like what, you know, can you do, is it humanly possible for your brain to project out accurately what the future will look like, you know, given Bitcoin as our global money. And I just think that one, we can't, it's impossible to like, I'll stand by this. Like, hey, Nikola Tesla was pretty famous for a lot of things, but I would say like probably the thing that he was probably most famous about is he could actually kind of start to project, you know, what electricity will allow us to do. Like he was on the right track. Like he was in many ways, you know, almost bullish enough. So, you know, I don't think any of us are visionaries or savants like Tesla or Leibniz or freaking Benjamin Franklin or Newton or any of these people who, you know, kind of had the vision when there was no groundwork there. So I think, you know, we're still extremely early. We're in the monetization process. Like we haven't even gotten to that point where Bitcoin is the unit of account. And then once Bitcoin's the unit of account, that's when the journey starts. Like that's when the real like strides in innovation start happening, because we're not being weighed down by fiat. So I question, like, is there a human being alive that's bullish enough? And then if even your wildest dreams of bullishness are bearish, like, okay, how do you adjust your behavior to like try to like not fuck this thing up? Because like, again, if you're not bullish enough, odds are is you sell your Bitcoin too early, or you don't position yourself correctly. Like we can get into the specific scenarios, but I mean, I guess what's y'all's take on that? Like, again, I'm just trying to like understand what's happening and again, position myself, right? That's the whole point of Bitcoiners is get sats, you know, pass them down and reap the benefits of Bitcoin's hyper monetization event.
I completely agree with you. I mean, I think it is very difficult to be bullish enough on this asset, even as Bitcoiners. I think that I also am selfishly, I'm like, yeah, let's keep the price low so that I can acquire more of them and the people I care about. And, you know, people that we're trying to reach with Bitcoin Magazine and the conference and everything that we're doing can have a better chance to get in on this. But yeah, I mean, I think that Bitcoin is definitely going to become the store of value for the entire world. And I think that's going to happen within our lifetimes, maybe shortly after, but the ride up, it's just the risk reward profile on Bitcoin is so asymmetric. It's astounding to me that more people are not as bullish as you are, CK. As you like to say, 37 sats will be generational wealth.
I mean, well, like let's just think about this in terms of, so 37 sats, that's the block reward in I think 97 years. I thought it was 100 years when I picked it, but it actually wasn't. So it was kind of a fucked up mistake on my part. But 97 years from now, 37 sats will be the block reward. So if Bitcoin works, that means a significant amount of the world's energy is going to be used on a daily basis, on a 10-minute per block basis, in order to get those 37 sats. So if Bitcoin works, odds are 37 sats are worth it versus they're not worth it. So what does that mean? Like, let's try to, like, if Bitcoin works, what the fuck is this all gonna, like, how is this gonna look like? And then again, like, let's zoom into like, okay, what can you even predict what the world's going to look like in 97 years, right? Okay, let's go backwards 97 years. Like that's pre-World War II. Like, do you think anyone then could have like predicted what the hell we'd be doing now? Like, hell no. They're all way off. 100% of all of them are 100% off. So I think there's a higher likeliness of 37 sats being generational wealth than not. So that's my calculation there.
So I want to address one of the questions that came from LinkedIn really quickly. Not a dumb question. You're just learning, man. So a sat is short for Satoshi. It's the smaller increment of Bitcoin. There are 100 million Satoshis in every Bitcoin. It is essentially all of the decimal places out. So that is what we mean when we say sats. And if there are other questions in that vein, things that you guys don't understand what we are saying, please feel free to write a comment about it, and we will do our best to address these as we continue this conversation. You guys are just going to call me a bear. I don't give a shit. I've said this countless times, and I really do believe this. We unfortunately will not see the dollar disappear in our lifetime. What it will be used for and how it will be used may drastically shift. The opportunities to use Bitcoin, I do believe, will continue to evolve, and there will be greater opportunities than what we have today. Maybe I'm still stuck in it.
Completely disagree, but
fair.
I mean, I guess like, hey, how much of our telecommunication is done via phone line versus done over the internet now?
Like, I would say almost 100% is done via the internet.
And that happened without telephone cables killing themselves. Like, you're saying that the dollar is going to survive. We're never going to, in our lifetimes, go beyond it. Bitcoin is an upgrade onto the dollar, onto that monetary system, right? And on top of that, the dollar is actually killing itself. Like, it is in the process of killing itself. So, like, to me, it is just absolutely asinine to say something like, in our lifetime, the dollar is going to continue to be relevant against the most perfect monetary system that has ever been created. Like, it's absolutely just asinine. It's absolutely bearish. It's so bearish. It's like, hey, like, we're still going to just use the fucking Pony Express, even though we have phone lines now. You know why? Because the government. Like, shut the fuck up. Like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, that's right.
Sorry.
That's right.
Everyone is spicy today.
It's just like how are you call yourself a Bitcoiner and have that opinion? It's just insane to me.
You are
But with that being said, I do think
my
Bitcoin
quote.
is. I would say that Bitcoin is binary, so you should prepare for a everything or zero scenario.
Okay, we will unpack that, but you are misrepresenting my quote. I am not saying that we are going to only be using the dollar and we're going to be stuck on the dollar. What I genuinely believe is going to happen is there will be some form of a return to a dollar backed by some form of sound money. And I do believe Bitcoin can and will take that role. I don't believe that every single country in the world is going to transact on Bitcoin, unfortunately, not while I am alive. I do believe in the future
Is there a country that doesn't have a website?
What's up?
Is there a country that doesn't have a website?
Yes.
Which one?
The island nation of Q.
I'm pretty like, isn't CAR like Central African Republic one of the least industrialized and advanced countries in the world?
Every country has got a website.
They even have a fucking. It's like, bro, like this is the bearishness that I'm trying to address here, guys. It's like Bitcoin is a fundamental step change up. It's like, hey, we have missiles, but hey, you know what? We're still going to use bow and arrows. It's like, no, we're not. Like, you're good. Have fun staying poor. Like, have fun becoming completely irrelevant in the world. It's like, how long did it take, like, a communist system that had a top-down economic model compared to, I mean, you could argue that we live in a state communist system today that has a free market-ish model. Like, those things right next to each other. It didn't take very long for capitalism to win. Like, again, when you have two systems that compete next to each other, the system that is inferior technologically dies. So, like, that is what is going to happen to fiat currency. Again, and that's what's going to happen to gold, too. I'm not saying that it's just fiat, it's just governments. I'm saying it's like gold, houses, ETFs. It's like literally every single way that you could have communicated and stored value is getting disrupted.
Okay.
100% of it.
We will unpack the binary outcome, but I want you to defend your claims right now, because what you are essentially saying is, like, there's no value in the future of your home. So what does that really mean? How do you think we get to a point where all of the value in the world is only in Bitcoin? Because let me tell you something. It is going to be a lot more painful than I think you are giving it credit for. And pain brings out parts of people, parts of governments that we may not have ever seen before. This is not just going to be oh, you know what? That's a better technology. Let's just go there. There's going to be fighting. There's going to be legitimate fighting, and people are going to lose a lot. And when people lose a lot, they will fucking fight back. So how do you think we get there?
I agree. I mean, I think that Bitcoiners need to be the appropriate level of bullishness, so that way they can position themselves appropriately for the shitstorm that's about to ensue between here and hyper-Bitcoinization. I think there's a really great metaphor that Tina and Joe Carlosari were using on the podcast I dropped with them yesterday. But it's like, if you're on one side of the Grand Canyon and you are looking again across the other side of the Grand Canyon, and that is hyper-Bitcoinization, like a lot of Bitcoiners are like, oh, we'll just get over there. But no, there's this whole fucking canyon in between. So like, you need to be prepared for the journey. You need to get across the canyon. Otherwise, you're going to get absolutely wrecked. And honestly, my position right now is that, one, most Bitcoiners already have enough Bitcoin to be extremely, extremely wealthy in a Bitcoinized world, which will happen pretty soon. Two is that getting across the finish line is going to be a lot harder than you think. And honestly, I think that like there's a top in how much hardcore Bitcoiners at this time have. Like, I think a lot of hardcore Bitcoiners think that they're going to have more Bitcoin in the future. They're going to keep accumulating Bitcoin at low prices. I honestly think that maybe some Bitcoiners double or triple their stack in the next few years. And then by the time we get to 2030, they've lost a lot of it, right? Either through theft, death, bribery, extortion, having to leave a country, loss of keys. Like, I'm serious. Like, there's like, you name it. There's so many ways to lose those Bitcoin. And I really do think that there's going to be a lot of like hardcore Bitcoiners who have like, they literally have topped in their sat count because they're not ready. So, I mean, honestly, you already have enough sats. You should be focusing all your effort on just getting that shit across the finish line.
Okay. You have not yet answered my question though, so I'm going to ask it again. What are the steps that you think are going to happen to get to that point? Like, where are the pain points that are going to happen that we have to mentally start preparing for? If you're telling us that there's going to be no value in the future of your homes, where are people going to be living?
Well, so that's a straw man. I'm not saying that there's going to be no value in the future of a home, but maybe we will stop arcanely using houses to store value. These assets that, okay, maybe the real estate itself is not being built up more of, but the actual asset itself is depreciating. Like, it's this house, I just moved into a brand new house. Like, since I've moved in, it's only gotten damaged, right? It's only gotten damaged. So like the actual house itself is no, I'm just saying it's a reality. It's a liability. But so, I mean, the house itself is a liability. So why is it being used to store value? And how is it going to compete against something that is a much more advanced store of value that has no liability attached to it? So I'm not saying that like your house is not going to be stored value, but maybe if it's not going to be like, it's going to be valueless. I'm sure your house will be very valuable, especially if has a great location, or if it's in the right neighborhood, or if it's close to where you want your family, or, if it's the construction and build that you think is perfect for you. But using homes as a store of value, I think, is being disrupted. Absolutely. Using paintings as a store of value beyond your sentimental value for that art, like, I think it's going to be disrupted significantly. Maybe there's a fringe group that does it, but it's just not going to be a mainstream way to store value. Just like, again, the Pony Express is not a mainstream way to send messages. Like, maybe it still exists. Like, maybe it's still relevant to some people, but like, it's just not going to be mainstream. And again, like, everyone needs a home to live in, but I think that a lot more people are going to have a home to live in when BlackRock isn't funneling fucking ETF value into every home in America and pumping up the prices indiscriminately. Like, I think that the lack of store of value in fiat is actually hurting society, right? Like, you think your house being valuable is a good thing for society. It's not. It's a bad thing, because now people can't have homes because they're getting priced out of homes. But yet, there's like a double-digit amount of New York City apartments that are vacant at all times. It's obscene. And guess what? People are like, why is New York so much more expensive than it ever was before? Well, guess what? Because more apartments in New York are being used as a store of value than ever before. So look, Bitcoin's going to fundamentally upgrade the world in many ways. And part of that is literally sucking out by competition via outcompeting every other store of value on the planet. I did a presentation. It was called How Much Bitcoin Do You Really Need? And one of the slides I took, like, it was like a rough estimate of the store of value market. I believe that the rough estimate is like, here, I'm actually going to pull up the slide. But the rough estimate, I think, is like 13 quadrillion dollars. I mean, Dylan LeClaire says that it's $6 trillion or quadrillion dollars. But this rough estimate was 13 quadrillion dollars. So, like, let's just assume derivatives, real estate, bonds, currency, stock, gold, silver, altcoins, all of that is divided by 21 million, as Bitcoiners like to LARP about. Okay, well, you're looking at $6.02 per Satoshi, right? Like that like, do you consider that you think a sat is going to be $6.02? And again, that is bearish. Like, that's not even treating Bitcoin as an upgrade, as like something that's going to create more wealth, right? Like, did the electricity bring more wealth to your life? Absolutely. Like, the electricity, the invention of electricity compounded wealth like exponentially from where it was before, and it increased everyone's quality of life exponentially from where it was before. So, like, we're dividing the current pre-hyper-Bitcoinization market cap of the world, value of the world, by 21 million, and it's $6 in whatever cents per Satoshi. So, I mean, like, y'all are bears. Like, if this thing works, like, y'all are fucking bears. This thing's gonna go. It's gonna blow your socks off. We're going millisatoshi. 37 sats are gonna be generational wealth. Like, we're gonna have fucking Dyson spheres sucking up energy off the sun. Like, you know, hopefully we're interplanetary at that point. Maybe we're worrying about bigger problems, which is, you know, how much of the universe we can stuff into 21 million Bitcoin. Like, if it works, like, we need to get so much more bullish. Like, what's our baseline? Like, it's insane.
I don't think you are properly addressing or thinking through, and he just walked away, so he's not going to hear this. I don't think, CK, you are actually thinking through what has to happen between the current system in our real estate market and this idea that you have that everyone's just going to have a house. And there has to be a lot of steps in between. And I think, quite frankly, the assumption you are drawing is wealthy Bitcoiners are just going to start buying up plots of real estate and just giving them out to people. No. And that's so unrealistic. And I think what's more likely to happen.
What a straw man, if I ever heard one.
Let me finish, please. I let you finish. Let me.
Okay, stop throwing straw mans at me. Steel man me, bro. Steel man me.
I do not think you are, quite frankly, thinking through what are the steps to get to the point you are actually claiming we will get to. That is one possible scenario. Another possible scenario that I, quite frankly, think we're scarily going to have come to fruition is, to your point, BlackRock private equity firms are buying up a lot of real estate. They're just going to be our landlords, or the fucking government will be our landlords. And then all of a sudden there is no value in real estate because it's held in the hands of a few. So I don't understand, quite frankly, how you are getting to this conclusion, what steps you think will happen. That is a lot of pain to get to a point that you are claiming will happen without explaining to me what are the pain points to get there.
The thing is, like, I can't explain these super complicated things on this show that simply, right? Like, one, if I knew all the answers, I wouldn't be on this show, bro. I would be advising some really important people. Maybe they'd be listening to me, maybe they wouldn't be, I don't know. But I don't know all the answers there. But what I can tell you is that, first and foremost, Bitcoin is happening no matter what. Like, Bitcoin's here, Bitcoin is happening. Number two, Bitcoin is actually a solution to a complete clusterfuck that's coming no matter what, right? So the absolute indiscriminate fucking that humanity is about to experience is coming with or without Bitcoin. It's coming because of the centralization, the destruction of the sanctity of a gold-based system, you know, the concentration of power. You could bring up, like, the invention of nuclear weapons and the inability for you know, anyone to compete past having nuclear. I don't know. Like, there's so many different ways that you can slice and dice how we got to this point of, like, absolutely fucked as humanity. But guess what? There's this little thing called Bitcoin that got invented, and all of a sudden it changes everything. It absolutely changes everything. And personally, for me, I think like Bitcoin's binary. So I started the conversation or my notes by saying Bitcoin is binary, but the reality is that Bitcoin is a set of incentives. If that incentive structure works and continues to work into perpetuity, most likely like Bitcoin outcompetes all other assets and sucks up all and becomes the dominant store of value in the human universe, right? If Bitcoin doesn't like kind of go on this journey to its final destiny, it will kill itself. Like the altcoiners all talk about like, oh my God, what happens when the block reward goes to zero and there's no one using Bitcoin? Well, guess what? Bitcoin's fucking dead. Like no one's using what, no one cares about it. And guess what? Like the block reward went to zero. But that is not really a scenario that's like worth focusing on. Like pretty much you should acknowledge that scenario. You should be like, what's the percentage chance that that happens? You should prepare for effectively Bitcoin zero. But in terms of like thinking about Bitcoin, it doesn't really even make sense to like think about to think about a Bitcoin scenario where it's like where Bitcoin's like this middle ground asset, where Bitcoin is just like, hey, it's working, it's fine. You know, maybe there's going to be fee issues. Maybe we need to freaking extend the tail emissions. It's like, no, like that's failure. That's absolute failure. It's like either the incentives work, 21 million works, proof of work works, the node network works, or it doesn't. So again, if it does work, okay, figure out what is infinity divided by 21 million. Figure out how many sats you need to get so you can be satisfied. Multiply that by, you know, some sort of exponential function to address for your human inability to be bullish enough, and then focus all your energy on getting across the finish line. Like that's what I'm saying is shit is going to get gnarly, Q. Like it's not going to be good. Like demonetization of all this stuff is going to make the world go absolutely haywire, but it's happening no matter what. So like, do you have the bullets and do you have the passports and do you have all the other things that you need? Do you have the multi-sig strategy and the what's it called? The way to pass down your Bitcoin to your heirs if something happens to you? Like, if not, like, are you even preparing enough, right? Like your inheritance plan, thank you, Chris, is absolutely necessary if you're bullish enough, honestly. And I mean, again, if you have enough Bitcoin today to be enormously wealthy in the future, like where are you out? Like where are you setting your priorities? Like again, it's important to be bullish enough so that way you can adjust how you behave and you can make sure you get past, you know, the craziness that's coming.
So I'm going to present this question in a different way. We're all familiar with Darwin's theory of evolution. For those who are not, Darwin did not believe evolution was gradual. It happened in each generation. Something would cave. The best trait would then carry on to the next generation, so on and so forth. So my question to you guys is, do you think this shift from our fiat system to Bitcoin will be gradual, or will it be this sharp shift that will just one day we'll wake up and they'll say, we're now on the Bitcoin standard?
Is it me first?
I mean, I'll even share my opinion on this first.
No, wait. I want to hear CK's, and then I'll give you mine, and then I want to hear yours.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've been ranting a lot, so I'm curious to hear what you guys think. But no, I mean, my mental model for hyperbitcoinization is 2030. It happens in the next 30 years. Happens first in the energy industry, and that's really the fulcrum for a Bitcoin standard. So I don't know exactly how that plays out, but you know, I do think that the trajectory is sound. So things are escalating very quickly. Bitcoin is becoming more and more relevant. And like Bitcoin is not even an order of magnitude away from gold's market cap. So like one more order of magnitude upgrade and Bitcoin is literally a geopolitically, it's on the geopolitical level of every other fiat currency that is relevant. You know, the dollar, gold, I mean, the dollar, euros, the Chinese yuan, etc. So again, like it's not going to take that much for Bitcoin to be extremely, extremely relevant on a geopolitical scale. And as long as Bitcoin continues to go deeper and deeper into the the energy ground, that is the fulcrum of hyper Bitcoinization from there.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I think that to answer your question specifically, Q, I think that uh, a lot of these things that lead to a hyper Bitcoinized world are already happening, and it is difficult. It is difficult to distinguish like which one is sort of like the breaking point versus something else, a step on that path. But there are going to be a succession of like major events. We don't know what those are. I would say definitely within our lifetimes that take us down that path. I agree with CK that it's going to probably start in the energy markets, but there's no way to predict it specifically.
So I hate to say it like this, but I actually agree with both of you. I was really hoping to get some pushback here on this one, but it's a combination of the two. I think what CK outlined is very spot on. It will happen industry at a time until eventually we will look back and be like, oh, Bitcoin is everywhere, doing everything and functioning as it was meant to function.
But there's going to be a landslide eventually. Like there's going to be a point where suddenly everybody, in the same way that contagion works, right? It's going to be contagion to Bitcoin. So just like we saw, Celsius blow up, 3AC blow up, and then you start having these sort of like knockdown effects, and the effect gets greater and greater and greater. We're going to see the same thing because as soon as a large enough proportion of things are being denominated in Bitcoin, whether explicitly or behind the scenes, everyone's going to be like, oh, fuck, I got to get my shit into Bitcoin. That's the only thing that actually matters. And I don't know when that point's going to be, but it's going to happen slowly. It's going to be, I hate to say this. We use this term way too much. It's going to be gradually and then suddenly.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I mean, this is literally so when Greg Foss says his thing of Bitcoin is a credit default swap on fiat, that's essentially what he is saying. And for those who are less familiar with what a credit default swap really is, think of it like insurance. Insurance on a bond or something that you think will eventually not pan out, and you're paying year over year. What Michael Burry did was buy a credit default swap on a bunch of subprime mortgage loans. What we are doing with Bitcoin is buying a bunch of Bitcoin because we believe the fiat currency system will fail. Michael Burry thought the subprime mortgage market was failing. So every year he would put a few $1 million into this insurance plan because he thought it would collapse and fail. I genuinely believe it is no different. And that is what Foss is trying to explain. And to P and CK's points here, it is exactly that. It will be slowly, this one industry will take it. And then the industry that's just tangentially over will see, hey, wait, that industry is booming. And the difference here is they adopted Bitcoin. How did one industry really take hold? It's because one company led the charge and all of its competitors are like, oh shit, they're using Bitcoin and they're making more money. So it is, to your point, it is slowly and then suddenly, and it will be very suddenly, and people will not, it will be too late by the time everyone realizes it to ape into Bitcoin. But it was too late to buy a credit default swap in summer of 2007 because the housing market already started crashing. The time to buy it was years earlier to get prepared for the inevitable. However, there will be this stretch of time where all of us will sound like the crazy person at the dinner party. It's like, oh, there's the Bitcoin guy. He thinks the world is going to end.
That's right now.
Totally. So I don't appreciate being called a skeptic on Bitcoin, however, CK. So you can go fuck yourself on that one, my friend.
Dude, get less bearish then, man. I don't know what to tell you. Like we're talking, like we are talking about the basics of bullishness, which is that Bitcoin is a fundamental upgrade on the current system. Therefore, it's going to have fundamental increases in our amount of wealth that we have access to. So if you're even comparing it to what we're dealing with, it's like you're in the Stone Age and you're talking about the Industrial Age. It's just like, it's like we're moving into the future. Like you can't even compare. You can't even compare. And that's why, again, I'm telling Bitcoiners, one, you need to be bullish enough so that way you can prepare yourself for the shit show that we are about to embark on. And then two, like, how much Bitcoin do you actually need? Like, should you be focusing all your energy on stacking sats? I don't know. So, I mean, I'm all about stacking sats. I stack sats every single week, multiple times a day, even. I stack every dip. But I'm also really focused on cash flow. I'm also really focused on security. I'm also really focused on my inheritance plan. And honestly, I need to be doing more. I need to be doing a lot more. And honestly, I could probably be focusing a lot more on that stuff because I probably already have enough stats. And honestly, Most of you do too. If Bitcoin works, you probably already do. So, I mean, I'm not saying to keep stacking, but focus on keeping it. Focus on keeping it.
Yeah, to that point, one thing that I think is important is, as bullish as we are, this is it is a marathon. And so you need to be managing, in my opinion, you need to be managing your cash flow effectively. So, for people like, if you go all in on Bitcoin and then the Bitcoin price drops as it has, you need to have a plan in place so that you are able to sustain your lifestyle, your family, all the stuff that's important. So, plan accordingly. Don't just to go back to CK's analogy of the Grand Canyon, don't just throw yourself into the abyss and be like, I'm gonna be fine, bro. Plan ahead.
So let's unpack this binary outcome situation. Why don't you, CK, take the time to really explain what it is you mean by this potential binary outcome? And let's start first with the possibility that it doesn't work. And what does that really mean?
Okay, so I think it's really important to think of Bitcoin, at least its end, like potential outcomes is the least likely potential outcome is that Bitcoin is like marginally relevant. Bitcoin's just whatever. It's just another cryptocurrency. It's just another asset. Like that's not going to be the case. And again, a lot of the bear cases on Bitcoin kind of come around that. It's like if Bitcoin's just another cryptocurrency, like I'm looking at its economic model and it's going to fail. And I would say, yes, that is true. If Bitcoin is just another cryptocurrency, it will fail. But guess what? It's not just another cryptocurrency. Bitcoin is the dominant cryptocurrency. Bitcoin is the ultimate store of value. Bitcoin is going to be the numeraire for measuring value, the metric system for measuring value. And on top of that, the way it does that is by having this perfect monetary system and this perfect hard cap. And if that hard cap does not work, it will not be competitive against the other things. There's other things that will outcompete it. So we need Bitcoin to be the perfect money, and we need the incentives to work for Bitcoin to work as it is. And if Bitcoin gets forked, if something changes to the monetary policy of the system, it's no longer Bitcoin. And that experiment has failed, and we'll be on to the next one. So I just don't see a world where Bitcoin is just this whatever average currency. I really only see hyperbitcoinization or failure. So I think Bitcoiners should prepare for those two situations. One, if it's hyperbitcoinization, like get enough Bitcoin to be extremely wealthy in that situation and make sure that you're taking care of all the other things that could kill you, steal your wealth between now and then. And then if Bitcoin goes to zero, well, you should have other shit. Like maybe have some gold, maybe have some bullets. Maybe it's worth it to buy a house as a hedge. I don't know. Like, again, I just think that this idea of like only having Bitcoin and then not worrying about all the other things that could mess up your stack, I just think that it's a very fragile, very, very fragile situation. And people are putting themselves, it's even worse. They're putting in themselves in, I have only Bitcoin and now I'm going leverage long on that too. And I'm super bullish too, but guess what? Like the sats I have are better than the sats I could have had because I fucked it up. So I'd just rather have less sats than no sats at all. So it really is, I think, having a very, very conservative strategy to get across the finish line is absolutely necessary because Bitcoin's asymmetric. Like your single sat that you can buy literally millions of for hundreds of dollars today, like it's going to be worth over $6 per sat in today's buying power. Like that's just based on infinity divided by 21 million right now. That's not even accounting for any exponential growth.
So with these binary outcomes, what in your opinion, where does something like a country having a Bitcoin standard, still issuing their own currency, but it's backed by Bitcoin that everyone can see, unlike in the gold standard where they could kind of fudge their numbers a little bit more, where does that fall into this binary outcome scenario in your opinion? Would that be a failure in your mind?
No. I mean, again, like then they're eventually settling value and all of their risk is going to be measured against the Bitcoin that someone else could have had. So almost like fiat currency is kind of like whatever Bitcoin the country has plus whatever credit you want to give them. I don't know. Someone said $6 is unrealistic, and I would call them a bear. just like in a hyper Bitcoinization scenario, I don't think that's unrealistic.
So how much in a hyper Bitcoinized scenario, how much does the buying power of one Bitcoin hold? Or we'll make it simpler. How much can you buy with a quarter of a Bitcoin?
It's like
225 million
like
sats.
it is not humanly possible for me to tell you. I can't be bullish enough. It's not humanly possible for me to accurately tell you I'm not Nikola Tesla. But maybe like let's go back in history and be like, okay, hey Q, like you're a poor farmer. Like when the world is electrified, guess what? You're going to be able to farm 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times more than your field with only one person. Like that's the level of innovation that we're about to like experience as humanity. So it's like maybe it's even more. I don't know. Like that's the only way that I can even remotely like try to express like where we're going.
So have it on record. He refused to answer the question that he proposed, by the way.
Jesus.
Wait, P, did I not answer the question?
You did answer the question. He's asking an impossible question.
But I'm just trying to give you like I'm saying Bitcoin is a step change improvement on what we were doing before. Electricity was a step change improvement on what we were doing before, right? So like burning frickin' like blubber to having electricity was like you can't even compare what was possible before and after. So it's like I'm sorry, I'm living in blubber world right now, trying to tell you what electricity is going to do to the world. Like I'm sorry,
blubber world sucks.
like I'm just like you know, I'm just so far behind. Like I'm not that brilliant, but I am humble enough to tell you that I know that I'm not that brilliant, and that I know that pretty much no one else is either.
I mean, look, to be honest, like to strengthen your argument, you're using exactly the logic that Ford used when he was asked, like, if I asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. So like, I didn't give the people what they wanted. So I do agree with a lot of what you are saying, that we can't even fathom or imagine how far this can go and how far reaching it can and will be.
But also it's like it either does it or it doesn't. That's the only playing field that we're in. So it's like it doesn't even make sense to talk about like an in-between scenario. And then when you're talking about the max success scenario, are you bullish enough? And I don't think you are. I don't think anyone is. I don't think it's impossible to be bullish enough.
I think it's important though to establish what are the sort of outlier events. And that by outlier events, I genuinely mean either it works or it doesn't. Because right now where we live, it's just sort of, it's in the ethos. And this is not where it will end. You are absolutely right. It will not be where it is today. The way its relationship with the global world is not the way its relationship will eventually end. What I want to better establish though, are what certain events, like why I asked you if a country still is issuing fiat on a Bitcoin standard, does that propel hyper-Bitcoinization, or is that deemed a failure, unrealistic in your mind? I'd love if you.
I'm pretty open-minded. I'm pretty open-minded to what hyper Bitcoinization can look like. The only criteria I'm saying is that Bitcoin is the fundamental basis of how we measure value. So just like electricity is the fundamental basis in which we, you know, we interact with energy. I mean, I guess we do it with oil too, but I'm just trying to, again, I'm trying to get on that level. I'm trying to like compare Bitcoin to what I think Bitcoin is comparable to, which is a step change improvement on how we do literally everything when it comes to measuring value.
I mean,
so
it's rooted, but like a lot of what we're talking about, honestly, is it goes back to what we said at the very beginning of this conversation. The idea that we have to go back to fiat, that is, in my opinion, the kiss of death. That would actually lead us to Bitcoin failing, because if every single time you have to be like, Bitcoin will be worth $5 million one day, one Bitcoin will be worth $50 billion one day. Like all of those types of
if all that fiat is backed by Bitcoin, then the credit scenario in which that you are obliging yourself to is completely different than what it was before. So it's like you can't say like we'll be back to like a fiat standard if that fiat is literally measured in Bitcoin. So or in sats, because you know most likely it'll be like one USD equals like, you know, a quarter of a sat. and you'll be able to put in your chunk of your quarter of a sat. You put in your sat, you get like 5 USD. Maybe you need to use those USD when you're in that jurisdiction, but maybe you'll think twice before you go to that jurisdiction because the one next door doesn't make you buy their shit coin to live in that place. I don't know. Like, I think that sounds like hyper Bitcoinization, and there's currently competition, there's a country competition, and maybe we'll all have a choice between, if we use Bitcoin or if we use some sort of shit coin that is backed by Bitcoin.
You guys are right. I
love how everyone is agreeing with me. Like, normally when I push this angle, everyone is like, "Dude, Christian, you're insane. Like, get realistic, man."
I mean, look, all three of us are totally insane, but in the best possible way.
You are the two kids in. I keep using this fucking thing just because it's so fresh in my mind. But you are the two kids in The Big Short that started celebrating that Brad Pitt had to be like, "Yo, what are you celebrating?"
No, fuck that. No, that is not true.
No, he totally is. He totally is. Like, what you are celebrating is the demise, and there's going to be a lot of pain, which I'm not saying is not unnecessary. It is going to be necessary to get to this point, but I think we cannot just scoff or ignore these things.
You're moving the goalpost.
You're just saying, you're pretty much saying,
how did I move the goalpost?
Hurt when we rip off the Band-Aid, so let's just keep the Band-Aid on.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm simply saying, where are the pressure points that are going to hurt? Where is the hair on your skin that you have to be conscious about when you get to that point? There's not hair everywhere on my skin, despite how hairy I am. There are certain points while I'm ripping the Band-Aid off that don't hurt as much as other points. So what I want to know is, where are the points that are going to really hurt?
Q, I think
how those points get fucked.
I think you're being a little bit disingenuous here. I mean, you were texting me earlier trying to get me to invest in your startup where you want to mine Bitcoin with orphans. I think to be having a conversation about humanity and, not celebrating too much while you're simultaneously pushing that agenda.
Okay. You can't call me out for moving the goalpost and then like give me some like bullshit joke. Like, how did I move the goalpost? How did I move the goalpost?
I feel like you're putting words in CK's mouth with each of the things. Like, he's saying one thing and then you're like, how can you say that, genetically engineered giant crickets will not eat your face off eventually?
That's not what I've done. I'm simply asking you to explain or think through when this scenario comes to fruition, which I do agree with and believe it will happen. But I frankly believe that there will be moments in time that will be so painful, maybe for only small subsets of the population. And to be honest, I fucking hope it's the government. I hope it's government officials. I hope they fucking rot in some shitty system that they fucking started, and that Bitcoiners and all of us can fucking succeed as a result. So do not think for a second that I'm bearish on Bitcoin. I so adamantly believe. What I am challenging both of you to do, however, is let's talk through where we need to be better prepared for a real fight, and where are certain fights that are just, that's not a real fight. The perfect example for me is the petrodollar. The petrodollar will take care of itself. That is not something Bitcoiners, in my opinion, need to be focused on or worried about. It is literally happening in real time. It is happening in real time in Saudi Arabia and Russia, that they do not give a flying fuck about getting the dollar back for their oil. So that is why I think something like the petrodollar doesn't need to be the focus of our time. Something like housing, I think, is hugely important to discuss and us to think through. How do we get housing out of the hands of the government? How do we get housing out of the hands of private equity firms and put property, realistic and valuable property that people can afford, live off of, grow their families in the same way we used to hundreds of years ago? How do we do something like that? How do we get?
Well, we definitely don't want to go back to hundreds of years.
No. Sorry. let me rephrase that. I'm more meaning in the sense of people owning their home. It was not insanely expensive, and you could actually afford a home. Families grew up in this environment without this fear of, oh shit, you know what? If the housing market goes a certain direction, I might have to move my family because I can't afford my mortgage payments anymore. I want to never have that again. I want to never have a single family have to go to sleep afraid that the bank of all things is going to knock on their door and say, get the fuck out of this house.
I mean, but you have to accept that we live in a dynamic world and it's a hard world out there, and most people aren't set out for success in that world. But the world also has more tools than ever to give people success. And I think Bitcoin is probably the greatest tool ever in order to enable people to find success, have success, earn success in a sustainable way in which they're creating value for the world. So it's just like when you talk about like we need to make sure that no one goes without a home and that the government never takes a home away from someone. It's like, look, if someone defaulted on their home, then yeah, but if homes are less expensive because people aren't storing value in them more, then maybe more people can afford homes without having to like have freaking home equality or whatever. Like, look, the only thing that you can have equality over, in my opinion, is like the laws of physics, and that's about it. It's like the laws of physics, and then hopefully Bitcoin, right? And hopefully not taxes. But that's it. Like outside of that, it's like none of us are born equal. Like all of us have to deal with something, and it's like having the most fair world where people have the chance. I think that's the most equitable way, not by effectively making it so that no bad outcome happens to individuals. It's just like it is. I don't know. Again, like I agree with you. I think that we are generally speaking very bullish on Bitcoin, but at the same time, it's like when I talk about being prepared for the shit show, it's like, protect yourself, protect your family, make sure like you are prepared for anything that could go down. Like maybe America is no longer a good place to be. Maybe it's the best place to be. Who knows? Like, are you prepared for either of those scenarios? Like, there's a lot of people in Canada who thought that there was no way in hell that they would be able to not be able to protest and that they were going to be able to hang out in freaking, what is it? Oh my gosh, why am I blanking out the name of the city? It's it's so freaking important.
Ottawa.
Yeah, they were thinking they could hang out in Ottawa till the summer. Like they had no idea that their government was going to go completely AWOL. They weren't. I mean, they weren't thinking about those possibilities. Like if anything, Q, my message is like, hey, like you probably like be more bullish on Bitcoin, appreciate the stack you already have, focus on all the other shit that could go wrong. That's my message. And like I'm not saying don't keep stacking, but it's just like I don't know. Like you have multiple Bitcoin. Like if Bitcoin works, you are a gajillionaire. You're chilling. Like you have hundreds of millions of Satoshis. You're great. You did it. So make sure that you make it there in one piece. And on the flip side, if Bitcoin doesn't work, what are you doing to make sure that you're not getting totally screwed by the crazy fallout that's about to ensue no matter what?
What do you think about what's happening in China right now with the tanks moving in and protecting the banks?
I mean, it's absolutely insane. Did you hear about? So there's these banks. I forget which region of China that this is happening in, but they're effectively defaulting. They don't even have the cash to like let people take their money out of ATMs and stuff like that. So the angry depositors start protesting, right? And then the local Chinese government pretty much turned all their COVID passes on positive. So they couldn't like leave anywhere. They couldn't they couldn't go to the store. They're pretty much like on house arrest.
Holy fuck. I mean, wait, is that confirmed? They literally just flipped them all from negative to positive?
They just flipped their COVID passes on red, and they can't move anymore. So like more of this shit is gonna happen, guys. Like more of this shit is gonna happen. Are you ready? And I mean, for those people, the way that they could have helped themselves is holding Bitcoin in cold storage. So, I mean, governments are going to continue to act bad. They're going to continue to break trust. And guess what? All the real estate that you have in those governments is liable and susceptible to that bullshit. Just like the real estate in California is liable and susceptible of the bullshit in California. With, if you're a landlord in California, guess what? You can't raise your rent anymore until the government pretty much says so. If there's a rent moratorium, then you still have to be a landlord. Your house is still depreciating, but the cash flow goes away. So, I mean, all of these things are on the table with these crazy states. Are you prepared for it? I think people need to read The Sovereign Individual. I think they need to think about what the sovereign future looks like. And I think they need to think about how messy that transition is going to be, which, Q is obviously talking about.
I want to ask you just, and we have talked a lot about this already, but like, why is it that you think people can't really fathom how far Bitcoin can and will go? What are the things that are causing people to be stuck in this fiat mindset?
I mean, first of all, getting onto the Bitcoin mindset is really hard as like a Bitcoin believer, which just shows why, most Bitcoiners aren't fully converted over and are frankly bearish. But two, I'm like, I can't stress this enough. Like, none of us have the context. Like, it's like, it's like saying, like, why can't anyone see a color that they've never seen before? Or why can't anyone imagine a color they've never imagined or seen before? It's like none of us like have that ability. Again, it's just like none of us are Nikola Tesla. None of us can like put together these extraneous dots all around and like put together like some sort of like accurate view of the future. Again, go to any like recorded newspaper or a newspaper that's been around for like, I don't know, 50, 40, however many years you want to go. Probably less than 100 years. And like, you can look at like conversations about what the future is going to look like completely off. Like, no one is ever correct ever. So again, like, the only way that you can even remotely try to understand like the step change that Bitcoin brings to the world is to look at other previous step change in the past. So, I wish that Pete Rizzo was here to push back on me on my bullishness, but I really do think that, if you look back at the invention of gunpowder, you look back at the invention of steel, you look back at the invention of electricity, all of these things, everyone before them, they had no idea. They were not even close to imagining where they took us. They were not even close.
Yeah. I mean, you can't imagine what you've never seen before. Unfortunately, human imagination has a limitation to our producer Chris's
It's not
point.
humanly possible, Q. That's been my line. It's not humanly possible to be bullish enough.
Would you say Michael Saylor is bullish enough?
Haven't talked to him enough about how bullish he is. I mean, he definitely makes it off that he's very bullish. But I mean, again, like, I'm not even bullish enough. Like, I can't be bullish enough. It's impossible. And this is me admitting that no one can be bullish enough.
So how do we solve that gap though? Because to your point, Nikola Tesla saw how important electricity was and was the most bullish on helping to push it forward. And as a result, we still use many of his inventions to this day. And many of those weren't prepared to be used in his day and age. So I actually challenge you and say it is humanly possible. History has taught us that there are thought leaders who think ahead of their time and who can see the importance of certain technologies and push forward these technologies. So maybe my question...
That's a diamond in the rough, though. I mean, yeah, when I'm saying it's not humanly possible, I mean that, like, it is absolutely ridiculous to think that the average person or even a really smart person could think of it. We're talking about the one person, the one person that can put together the dots. Like, that's what we're talking about here. Not even a general swath of the population. Like, everyone else is bearish.
So do you think that it will be necessary for some diamond in the rough to help push Bitcoin forward, or will it be on the masses to push it forward?
I mean, Bitcoin's going to keep hashing blocks, and people will continue finding it useful to store and transfer and communicate value. And that's going to continue to build on itself. And the possibilities from moving from a inefficient monetary system that leaks value and is very difficult. I mean, like, let's talk about how difficult it is to make economic calculations on the current monetary system. Not even the central bankers know what's going on. Like, how do you expect a mom and pop shop to make any sort of remotely accurate economic calculation? So we're moving on to a system that doesn't leak energy, where everyone knows what's going on. 21 million, like my sats are my sats. My percentage of the total cap is locked in and certain. And now I'm building economic calculations off of that. So it's like, guess what? None of us are smart enough to know what that world is going to be like. We're all still operating on the old world. So, like, be humble. Like, be humble with your price predictions. Know that you're too stupid and too bearish to come up with something that's even remotely close to what is going to happen if Bitcoinization works, or if Bitcoin works and hyperbitcoinization happens.
I want to ask you this question that I've asked many of our guests, but the 80-20 principle. Do you think in a hyper-Bitcoinized world, 100% of people will actually understand Bitcoin, or will it kind of fall in the same way we've seen something like electricity, where the vast majority of users like don't really know what's happening behind the scenes when they flip their light switch on?
You don't need to know what's happening. You just need to know how to use it. And again, I would argue that most people can't use fiat effectively. But I hope that a Bitcoin-based world, people will be able to use Bitcoin effectively to make economic calculations. And that will change everything. Everyone being able to make good economic calculations is going to change everything. So, and I think that puts the power back in individuals' hands in a really, really big way.
Okay. I want to answer. I want an answer in two different questions of the same vein. How much Bitcoin is enough for the average Bitcoin investor in a hyper Bitcoinization scenario, and how much is enough Bitcoin for a business? How much Bitcoin exposure do businesses need in preparation for hyper Bitcoinization?
Those are impossible questions to answer.
These are literally the questions he sent me, P. These are the questions he sent.
I didn't say business, but I would say whatever Bitcoin you can hold is the right amount. But I just want to put some things in perspective. And I talked about, if you are considering our current scenario, dividing it by 21 million, that's baseline super bearish. But I'm just going to use that logic. And again, this is just linear math. There's no exponentials. There's no regression, nothing, just straight division. Okay. So if you as a person want to get your one person's worth of Bitcoin, so 7.9 billion people divided by 21 million, you need 265,000 sats. So that's today's current population and all of the Bitcoin, 265,000 sats. So you can buy that for like $50 right now. All right. If you want to get a millionaire's worth of value, so now we're talking about global millionaires. So we're talking about there's 56.1 million millionaires on the globe. So now we're talking about 0.374 BTC. So 37,400,000 sats per millionaire. Again, no regression, no distribution, like just straight linear math. Okay. So take all this with a grain of salt. So, I mean, you don't even need a Bitcoin to be in the millionaire class, in this future. And again, that's not even factoring in the growth that will come from Bitcoin being a fundamental upgrade to how we measure and store and express value across the globe. Like, that's not even factoring in any of that. So, I mean, that's not bad. Again, you can get 0.37 Bitcoin for, like $7,000 right now. I love the book Sovereign Individual. I think Sovereign Individual is one of the most bullish books about hyper Bitcoinization out there. They predict that there's going to be 100 million sovereign individuals in this future sovereign individual world. Again, like directional guess, like obviously this is not freaking like rocket science or any sort of like, real math here. But again, you take 100 million sovereign individuals, 21 million Bitcoin. Now we're talking 0.21 Bitcoin per sovereign individual. So, I mean, I'm just trying to like throw this out there so people start thinking about like the dimensions in which like we're talking about. And then, like I'm saying, like if you want to be bullish enough, now you bring that up like an exponent, you increase whatever those price predictions are by an order of magnitude, and then maybe you're in the ballpark.
And then add a zero, right?
I mean, yeah, that's an order of magnitude right there. So I said only one, not two orders of magnitude, Q. But I'm a bear, so maybe two.
That's
maybe
bearish, man. I'll go three.
I'll admit I'm a bear.
All right. What is, although I like we know the answer to this question, what is the most practical way to prepare for binary Bitcoin outcomes?
Hyperbitcoinization or zero. Get enough sats. Make sure you don't lose those sats. Do everything you can to not fuck that up. And then if Bitcoin goes to zero, probably good to have some other shit.
Should we be discussing this idea that going to like overexposing yourself to Bitcoin to a point where you are uncomfortable with its day-to-day price movement, is that really something bad that people just need to stomach, or is that a little too far?
Yeah, I would highly recommend against that, because I think Bitcoin Tina again put this really well. You have a cash balance and you have an emotional balance. So you might be good on the cash side to handle that, but maybe your emotional balance is getting drained as that too. So you just got to be realistic. You're a human, Again, you don't have to kill yourself to be wildly wealthy if Bitcoin works. That's my whole message. Is like, dude, fucking buy the tank, buy the gun, get multiple passports, make sure you're feasting, spend money on getting across the finish line the right way in style. And you probably already have enough sats, like honestly, if you're bullish enough. And I'm not saying to stop buying Bitcoin. I'm just saying respect the Bitcoin you already bought. Like, appreciate that shit.
I will say it a million times, and I will continue to say it. What works for me may not work for CK, may not work for P, may not work for you. You have to take the time to really calculate this out for yourself and what your appetite is. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about Bitcoin, because it really forces you to think through your own personal finances in a way that, to CK's point from earlier, the fiat system has never forced you to do so. So I urge everyone to, like, none of this is meant to be financial advice. This is just a conversation amongst three friends. This is literally how CK and I talk to each other in every single staff meeting. So you guys just got a sneak peek at how conversations at BTC Inc. and Bitcoin Magazine really go down. Do your own due diligence. None of this is financial advice. Don't listen to three talking heads on the internet. P, any thoughts here?
No, I'm just enjoying the fireworks, man.
P's
I love seeing CK and Q just going at it. I mean, honestly, I think I made it pretty clear. I take CK's side in this on most of these issues, but
we need to get Rizzo in here. Q needs some help.
No. I mean,
I don't need help. Whoa! I've held my own.
You've done a fantastic job.
I've held my own. I don't need a babysitter here.
Yeah,
man.
CK needed P's help, if anything.
Look, Q put on his big boy pants today, and he did a great job.
Shout out. No Pants Club.
I was going to ask you, are you wearing pants right now? That's how you know you're full-time baller status.
Well, so I want to address this because this has actually been on my mind during this whole conversation, to go back to P, yours and mine conversation with June 7th and American Hodl. And Hodl threw out something that, like, CK is just going to be like, he's being way too bearish. But this idea that every single pleb is going to get their castle one day with their 0.0001 Bitcoin stack.
Yeah, I mean, I agree.
Like, there is a line here. I think there is a line because, again, I'm not trying to be a fucking bear, but I believe that my kids and my kids' kids will benefit far more from the growth of Bitcoin as the global monetary system than I ever will in my lifetime. So I'm very big on, actually, I have a certain stack amount that I want to put purely as my inheritance pot. And then I want to have a separate stack account that's mine for while I'm alive. And quite frankly, I don't know if that makes me bearish or not, but I do think that there is a little bit of, I think, realism in my approach that, while I would love nothing more than to literally only transact in Bitcoin, literally have bought my fucking house by the beach and my house on my favorite ski mountain that I will not tell anyone, because if everyone fucking knows where that is, it'll get blown up, and I do not want that. But, like, of course I want these things, but I also am prepared to obtain those things through other means. I think there is a little bit of naivety and hope, and actually a lot of hopium in a lot of people that are not calculating risk enough. And they think if they don't pay their rent today, by next week, Bitcoin will pump and they'll be good to go.
I completely agree with you there. I mean, that was what I was saying. Like, this is a marathon, right? Like, I will, let me qualify what I said before. I think the statement, like, who knows if 37 sats will be generational wealth within our lifetimes. And I think to your point, we need to be realistic, which is why it's so important to like manage one's cash flow. Like, I mean, look, like if you go into it like, I only have 37 sats and I'm never going to need to work again, like that's not going to work realistically on a lifetime time scale on somebody who's currently alive today. So I hear what you're saying, Q. I don't disagree. I think having a balanced position, and by that I mean opinion, is also important.
That said, though, I do believe what Peter Diamandis has been throwing out there, that in our lifetime, it will be very likely that we can extend our lifespan. So to CK's point, you probably don't have enough Bitcoin if your lifespan actually ends up being 150 years.
I mean, guys, like the whole point of my talk is that it's going to be a shit show. You need to prepare for all the different factors, including Bitcoin zero. But if Bitcoin not zero, Bitcoin's going to be worth a shitload. And I mean, Q, like I totally agree. Like you should have a Bitcoin stack for the future, and that the future is going to benefit from Bitcoin far more than we will. But with that being said, like, our lifetime is pretty long. Both of us, not quite 30 yet, and a lot can happen if you don't die. If you make it to the 80s, if you make it to the 90s, 90-year-olds now are already living far better than 90-year-olds ever lived before. So I'm hopeful. I'm pretty hopeful that you're going to be able to see the fruits of your Bitcoin too. Maybe it won't be, it won't be 37 sats as generational wealth territory quite yet, but us making it to 2140 past the next block or going to zero block reward, that's probably unlikely too.
Before we wrap up today, CK, what are any other points that we haven't been able to touch on that you want to touch on?
Man, respect the Bitcoin you already have. Try your best to be bullish enough. It's not humanly possible. It's stupid to talk about Bitcoin in some middle scenario. It's either ultimate success or it's going to kill itself. Like literally, it will kill itself, as in it will stop paying for miners and no one will care, right? So it will kill itself. Yeah, be bullish enough. Be prepared for everything or nothing, and make sure that you figure out all the other things so you can get across this crazy fucking triple harbinger. Fourth turning, whatever the fuck we're about to experience.
P, final thoughts?
I would say, I'd remind everybody that everything we've said, we talk a lot about getting your money off exchanges, taking radical personal financial responsibility. And I cannot stress enough, make sure that you actually are taking that responsibility. Go and learn how to use the tools. Make sure you understand how backups work. Make sure you understand the risks and how to effectively store your seed phrases, and go through that process at a pace that you are able to take in that information. Because if you fuck it up and lose your seed phrase, there is no CEO of Bitcoin. That's on you. So go do it, but learn how to do it responsibly.
That's how everyone gets even richer.
There you go.
I heard that we're a little early, so maybe we should talk about Bitcoin Amsterdam.
Let's do it.
Y'all, I may be overly bullish on Bitcoin Amsterdam, but I think it's the right amount of bullish. I'm pretty hyped. It's going to be awesome.
Why is it going to be awesome, CK? You got a lot more deets than either of us do, so why don't you spill some beans here?
Well, I mean, we're first and foremost, we're dropping awesome speakers left and right, but we're about to roll out a new campaign and try to motivate Bitcoiners in Europe to start pushing back harder and start to try to, one, introduce more people to Bitcoin, but two, to help, the regulators and the people around them to understand Bitcoin is real. Bitcoin is here in Europe, and Bitcoin is something that's good. Bitcoin is something that Europe needs desperately right now. The euro is in disarray. Its lowest point since 2001 against the dollar. The eurozone is in disarray. We see WF clowns everywhere within European government. So it's not looking good in Europe, and Europe needs Bitcoin, and Bitcoin Amsterdam is the best place in order to meet Bitcoiners, in order to experience Bitcoin, in order to meet with the Bitcoin industry, and just frankly, like I'm PQ. I know you guys have both been there as well. Like Amsterdam is sick. Amsterdam is
I've never been to
absolutely sick.
Amsterdam.
Really? Okay. Well, I mean, it's
I'm
going to be
so
absolutely amazing.
excited. Like this is why I keep joking that like I may never come back because everyone has always told me how much I need to go and visit this city, how it's like so me. I love to bike. As everyone knows, I'm as big a stoner as they come, and this fucking tolerance break is killing me. There is, I think, a legitimate chance I will not return.
In that case, we need to make sure that you don't go at all. So that
No,
will keep you here.
I'm not saying I'm not returning to Bitcoin Magazine. I'm just saying I'm not returning to America.
All right, my friends. I think. Oh, go ahead. You
I
first.
just want to remind everyone, because I don't think CK you said it. Ticket prices for Bitcoin Amsterdam go up on Friday, so lock in those tickets now. Don't snooze. Don't FOMO into this thing. We're trying to do this more so because we know there was a large European contingent of Bitcoiners who had a hard time trying to come to America. We're doing this for you guys, so would love to see all of you. Would love to meet all of you there. It'll be a giant party, so let's do it.
CK,
it's gonna be awesome.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Gonna give you the final word, and then we'll go to commercial, and we will be back with BTC Sessions.
Yo, I got to give BTC Sessions a huge shout out. He is one of the very first people that taught me about Bitcoin, bought my first hardware wallet after watching his videos. And y'all can follow me at CK_Snarks. Go check out Bitcoin Magazine. Go check out Bitcoin Conference, both Bitcoin 23 and Bitcoin Amsterdam. If you want to get our Bitcoin Amsterdam whale experience, do it now. We just dropped a bunch of details on the website, so check that out as well. All right, y'all. Thanks for having me. Stay bullish.
Love it. Chris, roll the tape. We'll be right back.